I'm John Smythe. I've been abalone diving out of Eden and Merimbula and Tafra for the last 43 years. We used to catch abalone off the rocks in the 60s when we were coming down here on surfing trips. We never had any money, so you get abalone for a feed or lobsters and spear a few fish. So it was just getting a feed mainly and cooking it up on the campfire and not having any money to spend, so it was a pauper's life. I came to Eden as a school teacher in '74 and met a guy that was going to buy a boat and wanted a partner, so put into the boat, went partners with him, and as soon as the boat was ready I quit school teaching and started abalone diving, and mainly because I could not work when the sea was rough as an abalone diver and I could go surfing, so that was always, at that time in my life, that was the priority why I'd moved here. But I'd had experience with other divers over the years. My brother was an abalone diver up north of Sydney, and I'd been on a few trips with them and up the north coast and knew a bit about the fishery. So I didn't hesitate in spending the money and buying the boat and getting the licence back then and leaving what I was told was a secure job for a really unsecure job with not much of a future, because the fishery had been really flogged to death, open slather, and abalone were worth less than $1 a kilo for the meat. Back we were paying $10 a week rent, and I owned a car, I owned a surfboard, so what more did you need at that stage? We bought this first boat. It was a 22-foot displacement hull. It was an old boat that Jack Lucas did up for us, and we put an extension out the back and we put a hooker on it and put a few bunks in it and a stove and went to work. When I started, it was, as I said, not much money, but you'd shuck the abalone at sea and put them into the icebox. So you could stay up for 2 or 3 days at a time and then come back when you were filled up. So we'd camp or park the boat at Batangaby or Gabo or Blackhead Anchorage and then fish those areas during the day and eventually come home and offload and then work like that whenever the sea was flat, and as soon as the sea came up you'd just go surfing. It changed when you had to bring the abalone in and shell it at shore. So it quickly changed from using the slow displacement boats to faster using outboards and planing hull boats. So at that time Eden had one shark cat and a lot of sort of 17, 18, 19 foot Hayneses and things like this with 1 or 2 outboard motors. So I went from having the 22-foot displacement hull, which sunk at Eden in the harbour on a howling sou'wester, broke the mooring and got trashed, which was probably, in hindsight, a good thing, because if we had it happened at sea one day, we might have gone down and never seen again. But anyway, we got away with using that boat for a couple of years, for the first year, and we were fortunate enough to be able to lease a boat off Jack Lucas for about 12 months, the partner and I. So we were paying Jack, so much a kilo or percentage of the catch to use this 23-foot formula, which is a big difference from the very slow-moving displacement hull. Then I went into partnership with another guy and we bought this second-hand Pride, which we split pretty quickly. It was only 17 foot and 2 of us working out of it, and we split that within a few months, and then so we got rid of that and bought a 17-foot boat between us, which I ran for a few years. by 1980 they restricted the fishery, so the catches became better. So you could afford to buy your own boat and run your own boat. You became more efficient. So I think after about 81, 82, I owned my own gear rather than having partners. And so you go out with just a deckhand and a powerboat. And I bought a 21-foot Haynes, and then a 17-foot Haynes. And the reason I bought the smaller boat was to travel up and down the coast in the winter time, as far up as almost Coffs Harbour, Port Stephens, Terrigal, places like that. So you do a sort of a winter trip up there and get good catches. And the boat, the 21-footer, was in Eden, and I'd use that out of Eden. The 17-foot Haynes was a good little dive boat. Haynes sold the moulds of Haynes, and Eden Craft started building the 23-footer and the 19-footer, and they're still made today by Eden Craft, although the company's not in Eden anymore. But the 17-foot mould ended up with a guy called John Seidel, and he started making Seidel craft. So he made me the first professional Seidel craft 17-footer, and we modelled it on a lot of the stuff that was way it was set up on the other 17-footer. But I had a dive door on it, had twin 70 horsepower Evinrudes, and we put live tanks in there as well. And that's the boat I still operate today. Still a good little boat. So I got to know the grounds from 30 or 40 k's north and south of Eden in those early 80s. And then quotas came into the fishery in around about 87, 88, and some of the roads were improved up north to Tafra. So I started working a small boat as well and trailering it from the ramps rather than doing the longer trips out of Eden. And because there was a quota and I was catching on the quota up there, probably from 1990 I stopped working Eden and I was getting my quota up north. I have done some diving down here recently, and still Eden remained the most productive port on the coast, had the most divers and access to most grounds, and a lot of protected areas, say in the sou'wester along Green Cape. You could go out of Eden. A lot of people are surprised you're working some days. You've got a 30, 40 knot sou'wester, but along the rocks there all the way to Green Cape it can be mirror flat, And vice versa, Disaster Bay is a really huge nor'easterly, so you've got a lot of area to work there in the summer when you've got the nor'easters. So you've got a lot of variety around Eden for diving. But well, it's been a very important fishery. It's got a pretty, I guess in terms of a lot of other fisheries, fairly short history, but it's been a pretty, very active fishery, and a lot of radical changes over the years, and from the initial gold rush times when New South Wales were producing over 1,200 tonne of abalone, which quickly declined to the, in terms of catches. And we've also lost a lot of areas from urban pollution and sewage pollution and things like that, especially up north around Sydney. So the fishery is now confined pretty well to the south coast. There is some fishing up the north coast, but generally from Ulladulla or even Batemans Bay down south is where the majority of our catch comes from. But it's a good fishery, it's very sustainable, and it produces a very high quality product that goes mainly to the Asian market, but also to the domestic market in Sydney. And there's been a lot of colourful characters come through Eden over the years, and a lot have gone on to wealth and fame in other fisheries, and a lot of them haven't. It has had problems, but generally it's been any day that's good enough to go out diving, and there's not a big swell and the wind's in the right direction, and you jump in the water, you're going to get a catch. And it's not like a lot of other fisheries where you throw your nets in 5 days in a row and you only get a catch on one of them, sort of thing. Or you go out with your lines and you don't get a bite. At least we know if we're going to jump in the water, we're going to find some, and we hope it stays that way for a long time yet. And it should, if it's well managed and we control theft and other environmental problems that beset the fishery around Australia.